So, good afternoon, baseball fans. It looks like we are recording, and welcome to today's special presentation. And this afternoon, we are pleased to bring to you The Lost Season, a baseball roundtable featuring baseball players and coaches from both Liberty League rivals Bard and Vassar. My name is John McGraw, and I've covered Division III baseball in upstate New York for the better part of the last 20 years, and I'm currently the New York region writer for D3Baseball.com. Before we get started with our panel discussion today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the schools, and then we will let you meet our panelists. Schools are located about 25 miles apart in New York State's beautiful Hudson Valley, Bard being in Annandale on Hudson, which is near Kingston, and Vassar 40 minutes to the south in Poughkeepsie. Each institution offers a liberal arts education, Vassar concentrated in the liberal arts, Bard both in liberal arts and sciences. Athletically speaking, Bard and Vassar are both members of the NCAA Division III Liberty League, and they compete in the Liberty League's East Division alongside Rensselaer, Skidmore, and Union. Well, unfortunately, the 2020 Division III baseball season was canceled in early March due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Today's date has special meaning for those involved with us today. This marks what would have been the first day of a three-game series between Bard and Vassar, which would have had East Division playoff implications that would have been played, well, actually just about starting right now at Honey Field. So let's open with our participants in this roundtable, and we'll begin with the head coaches, each of which are in their fourth seasons of their respective programs. And I'll ask each of the head coaches to please introduce themselves, and we can begin with Vassar, and then we'll move on to Bard.
Thanks, John. Matt Ryder. This would have been my fourth year here at Vassar. Graduated from Johns Hopkins University, and happy to be on the call.
Andy Salvatore, Bard College. Fourth year as the head coach at Bard, and I've also been there 4 years as an assistant prior to that as well.
So we also have the pleasure of being joined by three student athletes from each school, and I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, and then we will start with the road team, I guess, which would be Vassar. So if the Vassar players can introduce themselves.
Hey everyone, my name is Christian Baki. I'm a freshman catcher from Amsterdam, New York. I'm planning on majoring in economics, and I feel lucky to be a part of today's discussion.
My name is Zach Magee. I'm a sophomore right-handed pitcher from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I'm majoring in math and economics.
How's it going, everyone? Matt Martino, senior captain and third baseman for Vassar from Hauppauge, New York, and I'm an econ major.
So now that we've heard from the Vassar lineup, here are the players representing Bard, from the youngsters to the veterans.
I'm Joe Barcia. I'm a freshman outfielder from Clarks Green, Pennsylvania, and I'm majoring in economics.
I'm Alex Luscher, sophomore psychology major and middle infielder for Bard, and I'm from just outside Boston.
I'm Esteban Rivera. I'm a catcher, senior baseball player, getting my master's in economic theory and policy.
All right, folks, now that you've been introduced to our roundtable, let's quickly go through our playing ground rules, if you will, but there are no umpires. There's going to be a series of alternating discussion topics posed to players and coaches from each school. Each person will be asked to have 2 minutes to respond, and then we'll hear from a panelist on the other team. One might say our time limit kind of is our pitch clock for today. So that being said, gentlemen, family, friends, Division III baseball fans, it's now time for today's first pitch, so let's play ball. I'll start with the coaches, and let's start with Coach Salvatore from Bard. You guys would have been the home team today. What have been some of the biggest impacts that COVID-19 has had on the Bard baseball program?
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, no, there's been a lot, honestly, as I'm sure everybody knows. I mean, first and foremost, you kind of just hope everybody is healthy through this, which is obviously, what we're doing. But, when it first kind of came down, I know for us, it was really, really quick. We had to make some decisions on what we were doing and, things of practice, things of that nature. And it really just came down really, really quick. Couple things for me, obviously really feel, for our players, and just knowing the amount of work and time that they put into it, kind of through the summer, into the fall, winter, and then obviously to have to then lose that really, really is hard. And obviously the seniors specifically, that we got a couple on the call here, but, for those guys, it's obviously kind of a really an emotional and tough time. So we feel for those guys, and just kind of going along with that, I know one thing for me that kind of stands back, kind of like, again, because it went really quickly at that time when we really lost kind of everything, was we had to kind of make a decision on one of those last days. It was really kind of up in the air as to whether or not we were going to even practice. And when we still had some control in terms of what we were going to do, we decided to practice and kind of turn that over, send out a couple texts to some of the seniors and just kind of ask them what they wanted to do with that practice, and let them just kind of dictate that. And really, I'm really happy we did that. That was something that, again, at the time, really maybe was a kind of a quick split decision. And then we, obviously not knowing what was going to wind up happening, like looking back on it now and seeing where we're at now, that was something that I was happy we decided to do.
So I'll now direct the same question to Coach Ryder. What have been the biggest impacts that C19 has had on Vassar baseball?
Well, so far, my new boss is my 20-month-old toddler, who I've never realized how many different ways she could use the term Elmo throughout the day. And also an office change, obviously. But, just making sport of this a little bit, some of the smaller things that I think we miss, just being out on the field and hitting fungos, putting our jersey on, having a catch with some of the people we really care about. I know those are smaller things, and when we talk about perspective, I guess they don't matter too much in the scheme of things. But, those are things that we really miss. And then kind of thinking about, like Andy was talking about, when this happened, it happened so quickly. We were in Florida and feeling pretty good about our team. We were really excited about this year. And it happened so quickly and just was ripped out from underneath of us. So I think just planning on having such an exciting team and then having that ripped out just made it really challenging. So emotionally, the emotional impact of that, people feeling alone, sad, scared. I know my job has changed a little bit in trying to connect with people remotely, and that's been a challenge. So, I also think it hasn't all been negative. I know we call it a lost season and it really is, but there's been some positives from this also. I know personally, I've never felt more supported from my department in the school than I've ever felt before. That, and just as we talked as a team, we've had more creative ways to train, reflect, think about the game. And it's also just helped us with perspective. I think we're much more thankful and appreciative of what we have, of the support that we have. All of our team, we do have people that are essential workers, but for the most part, our team, our baseball family, we're healthy, we have jobs, and that's not the case with everybody right now. So the perspective is key, and there's been some tough things, but some positive things that go along with this year so far.
So now let's turn to our player panel for the next several questions. These guys are baseball players, but also student athletes, basically taking part in what would be the spring semester. And we'll start with Vassar's Zach Magee. Zach, what have been some of the academic ramifications for you of COVID-19? Any kind of challenges from what school's presenting now, surprising positives?
Obviously this isn't an ideal situation for anyone really. This makes classes more strenuous, not only for the students, but definitely for the professors as well, having to kind of rewire the way they present their material to their students, especially coming from a school like Vassar, where none of my classes have really ever been more than 20 or so students. It can be really challenging to produce that same working environment where every student really feels directly involved in all projects, presentations, and just your everyday general class discussions. So in that way, it's definitely been a challenge. But for us students at home, obviously there could be more distractions trying to focus on class and get yourself in that same mindset that just naturally happens when you walk into that classroom setting at school on campus. With that being said, though, the professors, they're really doing everything they can to produce that same feel, make everyone really feel comfortable from their home. And just as professors would be available to meet before class, after class, office hours, they're doing just the same thing with the Zoom sessions. They're available before class on the Zoom session, after class, and instead of their office hours now, they have Zoom hours. We can go in and ask questions, but they're really doing everything they can to get the students through this tough time. And in many aspects, it's really quite the same. I've been in a couple private Zoom calls with students working on specific projects and presentations, and it really just feels like we're in the corner of the library somewhere working together. I've definitely realized, though, when you're staying in contact with the professors and students, the more you do that, the easier it is to replicate that same feeling that we have at school on campus. A surprising positive would be that the students are still chugging along the same way that they did on campus. Presentations still happen. Groups are still engaged in all assignments, and classes still go on as if they were normal. So it's nice in the midst of everything that's going on that's crazy in the outside world to just keep classes as simple as possible. But at the end of the day, you still have to just put the time in, and the professors in the school as a whole are really doing their absolute best to keep us all intact. And just as Coach Ryder said, personally, I feel very taken care of by the school, and they're doing everything in their power to just keep things rolling smoothly into next year, next season.
Zach, thanks so much. Now I'm going to direct the same question over to Bard's Esteban Rivera. As the academic ramifications, for you due to COVID-19 challenges and positives?
Yeah, so we're in a really similar boat to what Zach had said. Like the environment that the professors put here at Bard is just extremely personable. Everything you do is seminar style, even from the undergrad 100 level course all the way through up what I'm doing right now in the master's level course. Like right now I have 4 people in my classes. In the past, the most I've ever had was 18. So everything is extremely personable. So the big thing about going online is you kind of need to recreate that environment. And it's up to the students to come into class just as prepared as you would be in a normal situation. But the one thing that has really been affected seniors at Bard have a senior project. So for the entire last year at Bard, you're working on a research project. Every single major does it. Takes 9 months and takes a lot of work. And this is really the crunch time for that, where we were editing our papers. So of course, science kids were carrying out tests. So if they hadn't already finished that, then something had to really change there. Personally, I met with my professor every week, sometimes even 2 times a week, and that has completely been taken away. So it's really up to me to be in touch with him as often as possible, because I have to make my edits, he has to see them, and it's just a constant cycle of that. So that's really the biggest way that we've been affected here. But again, in a way, it feels pretty similar because, I mean, everyone's at home, everyone's pretty comfortable, and nobody likes awkward silence during virtual class because it's rough. I feel like it's even more awkward than it is in person. Just sitting there for a solid 15 seconds when a professor asks you a question and no one says anything, and you're just at home with the mute button right in front of you, it's tough. So there's been a couple struggles, but honestly, the environment still feels as personable as one would hope. I actually went to Binghamton my first year, so I had classes that were 250 people, and I couldn't even imagine what that would be like right now going completely virtual. So I'm pretty grateful for the environment that schools like Bard and Vassar bring to us.
Thank you so much, Esteban. Now, moving forward, our student athletes are all currently at home, as you can obviously see, and not on campus with their classmates. So let's turn now to Alex Luscher of Bard. What can you tell us about your current training habits, because you're at home right now, and have you been able to continue training kind of under these extreme circumstances?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate enough here at my house in Needham to have a batting cage in my backyard and some lifting equipment in my basement and a brother. So that really gives me the tools to train effectively while I'm here. But being in contact with all the other guys on the team and sort of around the world through social media and things like that, people are getting really creative. And sort of the mindset that I've had throughout this whole training process, from some advice from my trainers and coaches, is that my training program should be that of a late off-season program. So what that means is I'm at the maximum for my swinging reps and throwing reps. And because of that, my lifting program is not the super long, super taxing lifts that I would do in the middle of the off season, so that I can maximize my recovery and be able to go out later that same day or the next day and play catch with my brother, long toss, have a batting practice session and really go hard there, while not getting too fatigued. And the mindset that I'm trying to have here is eventually baseball is going to start up again. And we don't know when that's going to be. So you have to keep training like your coaches are going to say tomorrow. baseball is going to start again. Because if you're not training that way and baseball does start up again, A, you'll be behind in your training. And B, you might actually injure yourself because you're not ready to play at a competition level. But even at home, if you just have a tee and a net, a glove and a bat, you can really get a lot done. So long as you have a really good mindset and really great intent in what you're doing, and you really imagine trying to practice for that game situation, you can do a fantastic job at home. And while we may be limited in some ways, certainly creativity is coming out like never before, and we're just all trying to get ready for when things start back up again.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for that. Now for the Vassar response, I'll turn to Christian Backe. Christian, what can you tell us about your current training habits that are taking place now?
Yeah, thank you. I think that first, knowing my teammates are pushing themselves to get working however they can, whether it's garage tee work or throwing into whatever net or cushion they can find, that really drives me to control the things that I can control in these unprecedented times. Also, as a team, we've been having weekly meetings with some really cool guest speakers that have kept our team close, and I think also kept all of us engaged and motivated a little bit more to work when it would be easy to slip right now. Just this week, actually, we were fortunate enough to listen to a talk from Steve Chase, who is a strength and conditioning coach in the Detroit Tigers organization. He had some really creative ideas that I thought were great because everyone can be implementing them in their own training right now. Something he said that really stuck with me was that we might not have much, but we all have our bodies right now. And that was in reference to how anyone could be making gains in their sprint work and their mobility, which are two things that I think also sometimes get overlooked on the training side, especially when we're trying to stay fresh and act like we are in season. I know also for me that working to increase my mobility in the winter was really something that helped me. So I've been focusing on that while I've been stuck in the house. He also mentioned how his players were getting creative, finding weight to add for exercises at home. Like, for example, filling up laundry detergent containers with sand since they have the handles. So I thought that was cool. And I know for me, I have a 45-pound 4-year-old brother. So right now it's times like this where I wish he had a twin so maybe they could hang from the weight bar for me or something. But even though the training situation isn't the easiest right now, like everyone knows, I think there is a component of solidarity between the players, the teams, and the trainers and coaches, since we are all in the same situation. Everyone's kind of taking this time to help each other and find new ways to push the game forward, even at this weird time where we can't really play right now. I know I've benefited from soaking up new information from so many people willing to help. So I just feel thankful to still have a healthy body right now while so many people are going through so much more than I am. And I think remembering not to take that for granted is a little extra motivation to work harder during this time.
Thank you so much for that, Christian. Now, for some of our fans that may not know, it's hashtag YD3 week. So our next question is kind of geared towards that. We'll start with Vassar's Matt Martino. Matt, when you're being recruited, what was it about Vassar and Division III baseball that you liked? And at the time, what did you know about the Liberty League?
Yeah, so when I was going through my recruiting process, at the time that Vassar recruited me, I had never heard of Vassar, never knew where it was, never heard of the Liberty League. I honestly didn't even do much research into D3 sports at the time. I was kind of more looking at the D1 side for a little bit. And I was actually playing in a tournament at Marist College in Poughkeepsie when the old Vassar head coach actually saw me playing. They eventually took me over to the campus, kind of showed me around. I kind of fell in love when I saw the field that Vassar has because I think that's one of the best things about our school. Looked around the campus a little bit, met the coaching staff, and they eventually convinced me to go on an overnight visit. And then when I kind of met the team and stayed overnight for one night, it was a really good time with the guys, and it seemed like a really close-knit group of guys. And that was kind of something that I was really looking for with a baseball team, where you can kind of just walk in as a freshman and hopefully have 30 of your best friends. So that was kind of what brought me to Vassar. Also, my idea was to kind of get the best combination of athletics and academics that I possibly could, which with whatever school I went to. And Vassar being a top academic institution in the country and having really good athletics programs, it seemed like a perfect fit for me.
Thanks, Matt. Now we'll turn the same question over to Bart as we get to the bottom of the Raptors lineup card. And for Joe Barcia, what did you like about Bard and Division III baseball when you're being recruited, and what did you know about the Liberty League?
I was in a similar situation to Matt when I was being recruited. I had no idea what Bard was, where it was. I was just another kid with Division I aspirations, but I ended up realizing that none of that matters. What really matters is I go to a place that helps me develop the most as a player and help me reach my full potential. What really drew me in with Bard specifically was the class size. The way I learn, I could never see myself being in big lecture halls with 300 people trying to teach myself whatever class I was in. Bard really caters to the individual, the one-on-ones with your professors, with your coaches. And I think that was the unique opportunity for me to attend a school that would really help me maximize both my academic and my athletic careers. Of course, Bard has amazing facilities. That was something that really drew me in, was how amazing the field was. It's a place where we can get out on the field, whether it rained the day before or not. And of course, that's really attractive to a baseball player. We have a great coaching staff. Once I started talking to them, they gave me messages that I truly believed in. I know that they give us reliable information and they're there for us 24/7. What really helped me lock in the fact that I wanted to go to Bard was my overnight stay. I stayed with a couple of the upperclassmen and they showed me the culture that was at Bard and with the team. And I knew that from then on, I would be meeting some of my best friends, and that was proved right, just even with my first couple semesters at Bard. With the Liberty League, I learned more about it after I committed. I realized that it was one of the most competitive academic conferences in the country. And from that point on, I knew I wanted to become a part of that competitive nature and the Bard family.
Thanks, Joe. So, guys, good news. It looks like we have time for at least one or two more questions. So let's go to our most veteran panel members right now. We'll go with the seniors. So we'll go back to Bard's Esteban Rivera. Esteban, what were some of the things that you were looking forward to most during your senior season?
I mean, when you become a senior, it's all about how long you've been developing for it. You're supposed to peak at the end in D3, really. You come in, might be a little undersized, a little underdeveloped, but you get there and you work every single year with like a little bit of a growth mindset to become an elite player by your last year. So that's really what I was expecting, to not only have the chance to perform to the maximum ability, but to also finally be a leader on your team and kind of have an effect on the whole entire team's culture was really exciting. And I don't think that was actually lost at all, because a lot of what happens on the player development side happens before the season. So I'm still grateful that I was able to pretty much use my personality and like the way that I go about developing myself and having an effect on the rest of my teammates, because I can definitely say right now that the younger guys are in a good position going forward and know what to do in terms of bettering themselves as players and also just as people in general, because everything leading up to the season is where you learn about what it's going to take to be a good player, a good teammate, and a good student. So, I mean, it's not to say that those things didn't happen, but of course the games are the most exciting part, but still definitely grateful for what we did have.
And I'll turn the question over to Vassar's Matt Martino. Matt, what were you looking forward to most during your senior year?
Yeah, so it's funny. I mean, over the years, I've played with so many older guys, and they always said, when you get to be a senior, don't take it for granted. Don't take it for granted. And I'd say the same thing to the younger guys on this call and everywhere, because even though it was cut short, the end came so abruptly and it was just so unexpected. But probably what I'm going to miss the most is just competing with 30 of my best friends out there on the field. I mean, there's something about going out there on a sunny spring day like today, hearing some country music blasting during BP and just kind of letting go of the rest of the world for a couple hours while you play baseball that I'm definitely going to miss for the rest of my life. What I was looking forward to this year, kind of touching on what Esteban talked about, we worked so hard as a team this year, harder than probably I've seen our team ever work. I think we were more prepared for any type of adversity that hit us this year, even for the things that we can't control, like this virus. I think we've dealt with it as best as we can. And I was just really looking forward to making a push for a Liberty League championship. I mean, during my couple of years here, we made the playoffs a couple of times. We didn't really do as much as we wanted when we got there, but I think that this year we had a really good combination of hard work and talent that we were going to make a good run for it. And it's really a shame that all those long hours that we put in aren't going to really pan out for us this year. But I'm definitely grateful for the time I had as a Brewer.
Thank you so much, Matt. It appears we have time for one last question. We'll go back to our skippers, Andy Salvatore of Bard and Matthew Ryder of Vassar. And we'll start with Coach Salvatore. As we close things out here, coming up to the end, Coach, what would be your message to future recruits and fans and anybody else that might be tuning in here?
Yeah, no, thanks, John. I think, honestly, obviously stay healthy and all that stuff, but I think just kind of a lot of what these guys talked about in terms of, like, especially Alex, like, staying ready, because obviously there's going to be a time where we're going to get back at it and we're going to want, and I think everybody kind of as a whole, I know for us, you know, we're going to appreciate being out there even more than we did before. You know, like kind of like Matt Ryder said, you know, it's definitely, there's some positives, and I think that's definitely one of them, is that, you know, when we're going out there every single day, there's not going to be days now where you take it for granted. And so I'm just waiting. I'm excited to see all the fans out there and parents lined up to watch everybody. And then from a recruiting standpoint, you know, that's going to be interesting to see. I guess what I would tell people that are interested in Bard is that, you know, we're going to be out there. We're going to be, you know, as soon as we can. And even though we may not be able to be on the road right now, we'll be available virtually and answering any questions and doing whatever we possibly can to get guys like every single one of the guys that are on this call. I mean, it's pretty evident that all these guys are really, really awesome, really intelligent guys. So again, that's what we look for. I would assume at both schools, obviously. And, you know, just really excited to get back and really appreciate every moment we have on the field.
And so, Coach Ryder, of our panelists, you're going to get to have the last word. A message to future recruits and fans.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, to the fans, including our alumni, just thank you so much for all the kind words and checking in on not just my family, but the team. You know, that means a lot to me. And, you know, for our recruits, I think, you know, just be smart with how you're training. I know there's a lot of pressure on this time of year getting ready to get recruited and find your place. And we take all this into consideration. And the last thing we would want you to do is all of a sudden green light go and just go 100% and you're not ready for that moment and you get hurt. We don't want to see that. So we're taking all of this in consideration. Work with us virtually, reach out to us through email. Video is a great way. Show us the creative drills where you're throwing baseballs into a mattress and you know, hitting ping pong balls in your backyard. Like I love that type of stuff. So you know, keep doing that type of stuff. The more creative, the better. And you know, be ready when that opportunity comes, because we'll be back. We will adapt. We'll overcome. You know, we will persevere through this. And I have no doubt that we'll be playing Bard next spring and ready to kick their butt. Right, guys?
All right. Well, everybody here, thank you so much. First off, gentlemen, thank you all so much for doing this and letting us take up some of your time on Saturday afternoon, wherever you might be. Hopefully our discussion today for our fans, players, family members, everybody has been certainly enlightening, and we can't wait to all see you again. I'd like to thank each of our panelists, coaches Salvatore and Ryder, and each of the players for joining us today from Bard and Vassar. Also, in addition, thank you to the sports information departments at each institution for both setting up this event, hosting it, and dealing with a plethora of emails. And most of all, I'd like to thank the fans, parents, players, future players, everybody else tuning in, whether it's live or you're watching this later. We appreciate your time today and tuning in whenever and wherever you might be. If you missed any part of today's roundtable, it will be available for on-demand viewing. So my name is John McGraw, and this has been the Lost Season, a baseball roundtable with Bard and Vassar. So long for now, everybody.